Judge Eileen Cannon is closing the classified documents case against Donald Trump. This was charged about a year ago in the Southern District of Florida, where prosecutors from the special counsel's office, so an office that was appointed by Merrick Garland for the particular reason to look at this in some sort of protected, independent way from the rest of the department. They brought more than 30 charges against Donald Trump for mishandling classified records after the presidency and for obstructing justice, that investigation, trying to keep them when the government wanted them back. Judge Cannon is now saying that prosecutor doesn't have the ability to bring this case in court, and thus it must be dismissed.
So this just happened. Trump's classified documents case just exploded back into public view after sealed files connected to the investigation suddenly became the center of a massive courtroom meltdown. What started as another legal hearing quickly spiraled into total chaos as Trump's defense team realized the very material they fought hardest to keep hidden was now inches away from becoming public ammunition.
At Mar-a-Lago, many of them just packed haphazardly in boxes stacked in a bathroom. So the public will never know what kinds of documents were there. We had some sense from our reporting. Extent, because Judge Cannon has decided the report cannot be made public. And this was something that Trump asked for. It's not clear who necessarily would appeal because everyone agrees, right? It's Trump, the people he appointed, but it's possible members of the news media could try to force the issue at the 11th Circuit or even higher if it comes to that. But for the moment, the report is not going to be made public ever. The judge did not go as far as Trump wanted, which is to say, destroy the report. It will continue to exist, but it's going to be limited disclosure to within the Justice Department.
Trump's legal strategy from the beginning was never just about winning the case. It was about containment. Keep the public from seeing too much. Slow everything down. Control the headlines. Prevent the details from becoming visual. But the second those files started moving toward public release, the entire atmosphere inside that courtroom reportedly changed immediately. Because suddenly this was no longer theoretical. Now people were about to actually read what witnesses said happened behind closed doors.
I wanted to turn to breaking news just coming to us from the US, because we are hearing in the last few minutes, it's being reported by the Reuters news agency and the AFP, that a US judge in Florida has dismissed the classified documents cases against Donald Trump. Of course, there are a number of legal cases in jeopardy facing the former president, but this, remember, is to do with those classified documents taken from the White House. They were found at Mar-a-Lago, and you'll remember the pictures because the police searches there at the Trump residence, they were found in boxes, in the bathroom, in the shower area, and you could see in terms of the photographs taken the classified nature of some of those documents. But word just coming into us that a US judge in Florida has dismissed.
And honestly, this is the part that started exploding online. Not just the documents themselves, the reaction. Because when lawyers start losing composure in court, people immediately assume something serious just happened behind the scenes. And according to multiple reports, Trump's defense team looked completely blindsided once those files started moving into public view. Papers flying, emergency whispering, objections turning emotional. The entire thing suddenly looked less like confidence and more like damage control.
The classified documents case, we wait to see on the grounds of what, but a really significant bit of news coming into us, because this, of course, the case that was against the former president, he had been asked to return those documents by the archive. He had refused, he'd not done that, and hence those charges ultimately brought against the former president. But that case has been mired with difficulty along the way. But just this news coming into us that a US judge in Florida has dismissed that classified documents case against Donald Trump. It was unlikely to actually be heard before the November election, but it was one of those key cases, 4 cases, you remember, that Donald Trump was facing. This, one of them, and those charges, that case, apparently thrown out in the last few minutes. We'll talk to our teams there in Washington and get the latest in terms of the reasons behind that and reaction to it, all here on BBC News in the next little while.
And this is where the entire situation becomes politically dangerous for Trump, because now the story shifts away from politics and into credibility. Once testimony starts coming from people inside your own circle, former attorneys, advisors, staffers, people who were physically there, the internet starts treating the situation differently. Suddenly, this is not just media speculation anymore. Now people are asking whether Trump's own inner circle may have become the strongest witnesses against him. And that is why this story keeps getting bigger instead of disappearing. Because at this point, this is no longer just about documents sitting in boxes at Mar-a-Lago next to golf shirts, random newspapers, and whatever else was stacked in those rooms. This has turned into a public stress test of Trump's entire legal and political operation happening live in front of the whole country. Every hearing now feels less like a courtroom proceeding and more like the season finale of a political reality show where nobody knows who is about to start yelling first. Every witness becomes a headline. Every filing becomes breaking news. Every leaked detail turns into another clip spreading across social media at warp speed, while people online suddenly become fake constitutional scholars for 6 straight hours. And honestly, the craziest part is that Trump is not dealing with this quietly from some private office after retirement. He is trying to operate politically at full speed, while this legal tornado keeps spinning directly over his head. One minute he is talking about immigration, the economy, foreign policy, or trade deals. The next minute, cable news is back to showing footage of classified boxes sitting in a bathroom, like America accidentally turned national security into an episode of Storage Wars. And every single time Trump tries to pivot the conversation somewhere else, another courtroom update drags everything right back into the fire again. That is the trap. The story refuses to die because the visuals are too insane. Think about it. If somebody described this movie script 10 years ago, people would have laughed at how unrealistic it sounded. Classified documents, Mar-a-Lago, federal raids, grand jury testimony, lawyers screaming at judges, former attorneys potentially becoming witnesses, and social media turning every hearing into WrestleMania for political junkies. It does not even feel real anymore. It feels like America gave Netflix nuclear launch codes and told them to just improvise. And right now, the biggest fear inside Trump world may not even be the prosecution itself. It may be the possibility that more insiders keep talking. Because once the seal breaks, once testimony starts becoming public, once people realize emails, conversations, and witness statements are entering the open air, survival instincts kick in fast. Everybody suddenly starts thinking about themselves first. That is human nature. Loyalty gets real shaky when people start imagining themselves getting cross-examined under fluorescent lights, while cameras wait outside the courthouse like hungry vultures. And that is when legal cases start spiraling in ways nobody can fully control anymore. Because prosecutors do not just build cases with dramatic moments, they build pressure. Slow pressure. Relentless pressure. One witness talks. Then another witness realizes prosecutors already know more than expected. Then somebody else decides they do not want to be the last person left holding the flaming bag of evidence. And suddenly what looked solid from the outside starts cracking internally. That is why the courtroom shouting mattered so much. Not because yelling itself changes the case, but because panic always tells the public something. Calm lawyers do not usually start screaming at federal judges in packed courtrooms. Calm legal teams do not look like they are trying to stop a plane from crashing into a mountain. People watching online instantly understood that emotionally, even if they knew nothing about constitutional law. The reaction became the story because the reaction looked real. And honestly, Trump has always survived partly because he controls media energy better than almost anyone in politics. He knows how to dominate a headline cycle. He knows how to redirect attention. He knows how to turn attacks into fuel. But this situation is harder because courtrooms move differently than rallies do. You cannot just nickname a federal filing and make it disappear. You cannot truth social your way out of sworn testimony from your own inner circle. And that is what makes this particular fight dangerous politically. The evidence people are talking about is not coming from random internet trolls or cable news hosts. It is allegedly coming from people who were physically inside the operation. Former attorneys, advisors, staffers, people who watch decisions happen in real time. That changes how independent voters process the story. Because once the phrase Trump's own people starts appearing in headlines repeatedly, the conversation shifts from pure politics into credibility. And credibility problems are brutal because they spread slowly at first, then all at once. Suddenly every clip gets analyzed differently. Every statement gets fact-checked harder. Every contradiction becomes another TikTok video with dramatic music and giant red arrows pointing at somebody's face like they just discovered the Zapruder film. Meanwhile, Trump supporters still see the whole thing differently. To them, this is another giant establishment attack meant to bury him politically before elections heat up. And honestly, that divide is why this story has become such a monster online. Two completely different realities are watching the exact same footage and walking away with opposite conclusions. Critics see collapse. Supporters see persecution. Critics see chaos. Supporters see resistance. And somewhere in the middle are exhausted Americans watching lawyers scream at each other while secretly wondering if the country has become one giant reality show sponsored by caffeine and lawsuits. But underneath all the comedy and spectacle sits the real danger for Trump's team. The evidence is no longer hidden. That is the key difference. Once testimony becomes public, it takes on a life of its own. The media dissects it. Analysts debate it. Clips go viral. Opponents weaponize it. Supporters defend it. And every single day, the story keeps breathing instead of fading away. That is what makes legal fires different from normal political scandals. Most scandals burn hot and disappear. Court cases keep generating new oxygen. Another hearing, another filing, another witness, another leaked detail, another clip, another headline. It becomes an endless content machine that nobody involved can fully shut off. And right now, America is completely locked into the spectacle. Because whether people love Trump or hate him, they understand one thing very clearly. Nobody does political chaos bigger than Donald Trump. Every situation somehow escalates into a national event. Every controversy somehow mutates into must-watch television. And now this classified documents saga has reached the point where it barely even feels like traditional politics anymore. At this point, it feels like somebody mixed House of Cards, Judge Judy, Grand Theft Auto, and a presidential library together in a blender, and somehow the entire country is still standing around watching the smoke pour out of the machine.